Hey guys, Nick Schoen from Showtime Strength. Today, what we're going to talk about is in-season training for athletes. All right, so here at Showtime, we work with a lot of baseball, a lot of softball players. With that being said, their school ball schedule's now full go. They're getting into the nitty-gritty, getting ready to play in the postseason. But after school ball wraps up, we now have summer travel ball, followed by fall ball, followed by winter hitting leagues, etc. So we're now in the meat, we're getting into this heavy in season time. So something we have to deal with a lot with our athletes, that play baseball and play softball. And this isn't just us, it's, we communicate with coaches all across the country that work around these same issues. And it's really not a big issue, all right? But in season training. All right, so I think when you're looking at in-season training, why it's so important, I'd actually say, so without a good off-season training plan, in-season training is going to be a disaster because that's when you're going to hear a lot about complaining about soreness. You're not going to be able to train. You don't have a base built up yet, because they didn't do anything the other 6-8 months out of the year. Now you're trying to cram everything in and build a base plus peak for performance. But with that being said, a good off-season plan isn't very effective if there's no in-season plan. All right, so when you think about this with the school ball teams, all right, right now they're getting ready to head into postseason play, trying to get into the state tournament. So if you haven't trained since February, which is when season starts up, you're gonna need your highest performance in your most detrained state. So you've lost almost all training benefit that you gained from your off-season workouts. But so when you need the highest performance, you're detrained. So with that being said, all right, in-season training guidelines, and these aren't super crazy. All right, two times a week training wise in season is perfect. You can add more sessions, but really you're just cutting into recovery time. And you got to remember the goal of in-season training is to maximize your recovery. 2 times a week, like 45-minute workouts seem to be perfect. So here's how I would structure your workouts. So like I said, 45-minute sessions. All right, 0 to 15 minutes. We'll call it a warm-up. Mobility drills. All right, so one day you could have more hip mobility drills, ankle mobility. Another day you could do shoulder mobility, anything for the wrist grip, any tight areas, so weak areas, any trouble issues. That could be soft tissue work, rolling out on a softball, rolling out on a baseball, lacrosse ball, getting into the pecs, the biceps, the adductors, all those areas that tend to get tight and because of overwork with those athletes in their sports. So you're going to spend about 15 minutes warming up, get a good thorough warm up in. Your warm up, we have a handful of them on our channel. Really, it should just encompass a full body approach, moving the body through different planes of motion, all right, getting some good joint health in there. So then 15 to 30 minutes, I would just go main lift, accessory to complement the main lift. So let's say you're doing a half kneeling dumbbell overhead press. You could pair that with a pull down, pull up, or a row, anything like that. And then a supplemental movement to go with that. That could be any prehab movement. Again, if you have a weak area, you might need some more posterior shoulders. You might need some anti-rotation training, whatever it might be. So on here, 2 to 4 sets. Main lifts in season, I like to keep the rep ranges higher, or I'm sorry, lower. So reps drop down, so volume goes down, intensity stays high. All right, so you gotta keep the intensity up, but we gotta cut the volume down, because the last thing we want is an athlete who's training, during the season, but their training volume isn't being monitored and it's going all over the place, and then they're sore all the time. So just drop the reps. So like on a box squat, we'll probably do triples. Bench press, we'll probably do triples, and just keep everything speed, keep the intensity up. All right, accessories, you're probably talking 10 to 15 rep ranges. And we also get rid of isometrics during this period. If we do an isometric, it'll generally just be like a 1 second pause, maybe after a game, like the day after a game, when they don't have games coming up in the next 24 to 48 hours in their competitive schedule. All right, so supplemental, you can bump those up to 15 to 20 reps as long as the athlete is not inducing soreness. All right, so that's just something to keep in mind. So then 30 to 40 minutes. So 2 to 4 sets of the first cluster. So if you're doing upper body on the first cluster of exercises, so keep the same principles. Main lift, accessory, supplemental. Here, 1 to 3 sets. I generally will fall into the 2 sets for athletes here. And just so you're just switching. So lower body. So this could be like a hex bar deadlift, glute ham bridge, side plank. 40 to 45 minutes. Stretch, recover, work on some breathing drills to bring the body back down. And that's really the approach I would take with your athletes. And what you'll notice is they're going to keep that strength. And you can actually, we have athletes that will hit PRs during their season, and they never get sore. All right, so here's a few things that we do with our athletes during season. Sprints, pretty much cross out. Their sport specific sprint work is going to be practice games. So we almost completely cut out sprints. We might do a little bit of just some movement through space, but no real sprinting. Jumps, we generally take out jumps if we do any jumps. That's where we're going to do like a seated box jump, something where they're not taking the full impact. And we will replace that with more med ball throws. But when you're talking about a rotational sport like baseball, softball, I know a lot of people think, oh, well, they rotate a lot in baseball, softball. We need to rotate with our med ball work. But the reality is that's the last thing they need. They're taking hundreds of swings at practice. So don't do that. All right? You don't need more rotation. You need to build the body up to protect it during that rotational movement. So I cover sprints, throws. Like I said, intensity goes up, volume goes down, and we'll do, we'll pretty much stick to box squatting, hex bar deadlift. Those will be our main lifts. Sometimes we'll throw in a like a pin pull, pin deadlift, but we're trying to take away that soreness factor. So getting things that get rid of the stretch reflex really help a lot. And then what we need to do after that, for the upper body, we can go board press or floor press. And again, just staying out of that full range of motion to decrease the soreness. But when you're looking at volume and work, we need to keep in mind rest, nutrition, and performance. All right, so if there's something's off on all those, you need to look at the athlete as a whole and make the adjustments up or down based on, if they're not even playing games, you can train them. But if you have a pitcher that's pitching every other night, you need to adjust that volume, especially on your overhead and pressing movements. All right. Also, I should have said this, increase pulls. One way to increase pulls, rows, like I said, pull downs, posterior shoulder. That generally helps them a lot. And we'll give our throwing athletes pre-game things they can do if the coach will allow it. And that really helps cut down on overuse injuries. So this is going to be part 1 of this video series. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below.